We all know politicians are corrupt, but we do not know as why they are corrupt. Majority of you people have seen this. We've been through various candidates, and there's this consistent thread that that runs amongst them of corruption. Why are they being so corrupt? Because they want more money. Why do they need more money? Because they have nothing else to offer, which is the first thing. Let's face it, most politicians are old, fat, obese, lazy, uninteresting, uncharismatic people. And when you're devoid of all of these attributes, money becomes the only thing you have to offer. You can't get the girl, so you pay for escort. You can't network, so you pay to get into certain room. No network means you can't establish genuine relationship. It means for every movement, for every single thing you do, you have to pay some kind of money. And if money becomes the only thing that makes you relevant, you will try as much as possible to get more of this, raking people's hard earnings in order to fill your coffers. So this is an angle that we can see it from. They have zero value to offer. Majority of people say when you get money, you change or money changes people. No, my friend, that is absolutely and utterly incorrect. When you get money, people change. The people around you changes because now you're valuable. Now there's some kind of utilities that you can offer. So they have to be very careful how they talk to you. They laugh extra hard at your jokes, even when you know that it's not funny. You are surprised when they laugh at that boring joke you told 2 years ago at the family dinner. Excuse me. All of a sudden, it's now funny. It's funny how the human tendency and we as humans change in the presence of results. So that's the first thing. They have zero kind of value to offer. So they need a lot of money to keep them relevant. We move to the second one, which is they want absolute control. They want absolute control. The Bible says it all. The rich shall rule over the poor. So if this is the case, if I ask you to describe what money is, majority of you will give me the definition in which the princes have so indoctrinated you with. Money is a store of value. If these past few years have not taught you a single thing, especially this year, then you are dumbass. Majority of you had zero idea of what inflation is, but this time has forced you to gain that extra knowledge. Inflation, as you know, is the devaluation of your currency. So if you say that money is a store of value, then why does inflation exist? It it absolutely contradicts the earlier sentence. So money is not a store of value. I like to define it as this. Money is a store of energy. Money is the store of energy of the other person. So if you do any single thing, if you do anything I say in order to get this paper dollars, then you are effectively my slave. You go to the tunnels to get this money. You dig the sewer to get this money. You carry bricks and break your back in order to get this money, then you effectively might say it means more money, or by extension, more money means more control. So I have to discover how to get a lot of these finances in order to keep you at bay, in order to keep you under my leash. Do you now see why majority of these politicians are trying so hard to rake as much money as they can before their tenure ends? So the question now becomes, if you've gotten up onto this point of the video, the question you're asking is, how can I escape this road? What is the solution to the problem? My friend, there's no solution to the problem. I know that might sound like a cynical answer to give to you guys. Before you hit that comment section and type rubbish, hear me out. The rich would always keep getting richer, the poor would become poorer, and the middle class will be wiped out. Let me give you a breakdown of what that means. In 2020, we saw the government hand out stimulus checks. So it was giving out free checks You were producing nothing and earning for producing nothing, basically earning for existing. Let me tell you why that is bad for the economy, and the rich will keep getting richer and the poor will keep getting poor. Say the government decides to hand out a $5,000 check to each and every single one of you. 75% of you are going to spend it, 15% are going to save it, 10% are going to invest. Let's look at the 75%. Say you spend this money, you give it to Gucci, you give it to Louis Vuitton, you give it to Balenciaga, you give it to Apple. Who owns a majority of Apple? The rich people. You just made their holdings even more valuable. Majority of you will not spend it. Majority of you are frugal with your finances. So instead of spending it on all this extra cash, because this is what middle income people do. My groceries are taken care of. So I have all this extra cash coming in. The best thing to do is to spend it on Louis Vuitton, Gucci, get that new Apple, get that new Chanel bag. So you're giving it back to you're returning the funds back to the rich people. While there are some people who need groceries, who need food stuff, guess who you're going to give that money to? You're giving it to Dangote, you're giving it to Walmart, you're spending it at the grocery store. Who owns all of those products? I'm not trying to say you're a consumer, but this is an analogy that I want you to review objectively. You're giving it back to the rich people. The rest of the 15% who would who would save this money, you save the money and you get say a 1% interest on your savings. And mind you, I'm being very generous with this percentage, is lesser in some other countries. You get a 1% return, 3% while battling 3% inflation. You effectively lost some of the money. And $100,000 $10 ago is not $100,000 today. Majority of you have heard that sentence. Majority of you now believe the sentence. But let me give you a breakdown of what that actually means. Say you had $100,000 $10 ago. You put it in a bank for a 1% return. 1% return. Maybe at best it goes to $11,000 after the 10 years. But you say to me, Ifeanyi, I don't see any literal deductions on my pay balance. So how do you mean that inflation is eating away on my $100,000? I'll tell you that $100,000 spent 10 years ago. Let me now give you a breakdown. The reality of it is your purchasing power is reducing, because if I purchase this pen for $1 10 years ago and 10 years down the line, it becomes $5. So I'm paying $4 more to gain exposure to the same product, and that I derive the same utility from. So that's what they call the hidden tax, which is inflation. My God, the temperature here is unbearable. The hidden tax. There's what the psychologists call the money illusion. Something called the money illusion. Imagine in a year, where you get a 2% pay cut and inflation is at 0%, you would invariably feel worse than you would if you get a 2% pay raise in a year where inflation is 4%. But the reality of it is, you both changes in your salary brings you back to the identical position, but you feel better in one scenario, which is 2%, but the reality of it is you are still 2% worse after inflation. So that's what is called the money illusion. Do not fall for this trap. Majority of Africans, when they leave our country to go to Europe, they believe that is greener pasture. But the reality of it is, you might get finances, or your finances might increase at a nominal value, but you're just breaking even. You're struggling at their level. In your mind, you might think you're earning more, but a huge chunk of that earning is going to groceries, shelter, clothing. The cost of these three needs, according to the Maslow hierarchy of needs, is varies from the initial cost of the country. So it's just like struggling at the same level, but different amounts. That's the explanation behind that subject. So where are we? So the 75% who would save that money, 15% who would save that money. This is the reality of it. Your savings is not going to give you enough return to break out of inflation. The remaining 10% who are smart enough, who decides to invest this money, you're only going to make the rich richer. But how does that make sense? I'm investing the money. This is what you people advocate for. Invest the money, invest the money. And I commend your bold step. However, that is not enough. Say you imagine you invest $2,000 into the stock market. And this is something we saw during COVID where Amazon stock shot up by 30%. Now, where's Jeff Bezos, who owns a lot of a huge portion uh, of that company? Bezos, where's Bezos now? Balling the hell out. I heard he just got one of the largest yachts in the world. From your money, you're funding that lifestyle. You're the one who's paying for all the shit he's buying. Say you decide, say all of you, maybe you and your 10 friends decides to pool this money together to get a single rental property in order to start building that way. One rental property has been taken off the market. You just inflated the price of the surrounding rental properties. All the properties goes up because everyone has this money that they're throwing out rental properties. If they shared money, I have this money, you have this money, but I also have a property. It's logical for me to sell it at an like sell it via an auction model. The highest bidder gets exposure to this property. So the rental property inflates. Who owns who owns a huge chunk of the rental properties? Kiyosaki, Grant Cardone, the rich people, the ultra rich owns all of this. So you're just making them wealthier. Well, does that mean I should not invest my money at all? No, my friend, that's actually the opposite. The reality of it is, for you to be a teacher, you must first be a student. For you to for you to get to the other side, you must first enrich someone. El Nightingale said, thinking that you can enrich someone, thinking you can get rich without enriching someone else is delusion. Always create a win-win scenario. Once you pay the price of ignorance, the next person paying that price will benefit you. The next person throwing his money into the stock market will inflate your stock portfolio. So pay the price of ignorance. This is the price you pay in the school of wisdom. And once you are done paying that price, the next person to pay that price will ultimately benefit you. Now, I hope you got a lot of value from this first breakdown. Share to someone who needs it. Share to someone who's angry at society. That's all you need. Share to someone. And if this video has been valuable, check out our other videos. As always, my friends, I'll see you in the next one.